Hello and welcome! I'm Randy Bueller, joined by Eric Froelich, a man who knows a thing or two about Storm. Congratulations on the big finish over the weekend in the Power 9 Challenge, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. That
Did
was a fun
you,
tournament.
yeah, it was a fun tournament. I did want to say one thing about the ads that were going by. The Gamers Helping Gamers ad. Chris Pakula talked about it earlier. There's actually a donation matching right now, so if you were ever of a mind to contribute to that charity, today is the right day to do it. But there's a typo on the ad. It's a .org website. It's gamershelpinggamers.org. It's not .com. So apologies for the typo, but definitely a worthy cause. I loaded up the website earlier today and gave it a little bit, actually. How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. It's been some good Magic tonight. Did you have this matchup that David's got to face? I know that the deck you played in the Power 9 Challenge very similar to the list that David Williams is on for this tournament. But did you have to play anything like what Uli's going to bring to the table?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty popular deck, especially on Magic Online. It's tough to tell sometimes, especially playing the Storm deck, because of course we didn't get deck lists. Not many of my matches went 3 games, and not many of my matchups went 3 turns. So I played against a lot of Delver, but it's hard to know whether it was Grixis Delver or just straight blue-red Delver or some other version of Delver. So I did play against a whole bunch of Delver decks. None of the matches were close. I was able to win them all fairly easily. I think that this deck has a pretty good matchup against decks like that. I think
The
this is
Cabal
definitely
therapies have to help, right? They have to give Ula
absolutely.
an edge versus your everyday ordinary Delver deck.
Yeah, absolutely. Therapy is an excellent card in Vintage in general. Of course, both decks are playing it. It can be tough though because you're just not getting a fast enough clock. Like the fact that they can kill you on turn 2 so consistently doesn't give you a lot of time to really be setting up these therapies, and so
True.
it really is tough. The die roll is huge. If you have some early disruption, obviously mental misstep and forceful are great, but these storm decks are good against blue decks, and so that's not enough, especially with duress and cabal therapy with cards that actually have storm. If you're able to nab their big spell, well, things are going well for you. But sometimes their big spell is Mind's Desire, and there's nothing you could do anyway. So the storm decks are strong against what the blue decks are running right now.
Yeah, I think we have actually a copy of your deck list. If we could get that on the screen, I'd be interested to hear if there are any differences with the way you ran it over the weekend versus the way that David is going to be playing it in this next match.
Yeah,
How many differences are there?
I'm not sure exactly how many differences there are. I mean, this was a list that had done well in some of the big Eternal tournaments throughout the world. If you go on like the Mana Drain and see there's a number of lists, or just various vintage tournaments. Dark Petition, Storm has been doing well, and
Yeah.
so I made a handful of changes for my list. I believe Dave's is pretty consistent main deck with what people have been playing.
Yeah, the
He
main
changed
deck
up
looks
some
super
sideboard cards
close.
for sure. Yeah, I ended up playing a Time Walk. Um, I cut Chain of Vapor. I didn't think that was necessary with the 2 Hercules recalls. That was
Okay.
typically what you were going to want to bounce, but I actually thought the Chain of Vapor would have been pretty good, and I never needed it to win any games, but it would have made a couple situations easier. So I might go 1 Hercules, 1 Chain of Vapor if I were to play the deck again. My sideboard, I'm not sure exactly what Dave's playing. I know he has another defense grid, and I know we saw an illness in the ranks earlier, and
Yep.
illness is great against the tokens, but in my experience, the tokens just weren't doing enough. And so, while it was great and having access to that card is excellent, it's very good in the matchups. It's not necessarily what I felt the Storm deck actually needed because I was just winning anyway. And
Yep.
so I let them make their tokens, and you can lose here and there to disruption, untap with pyromancer and like gush time walk type things. But it typically did take a time walk, so it wasn't a big concern of mine. So I ended up not playing a card like that, and a lot of cards against shop, some cards against dredge, some cards for the mirror, and yeah, that was what I went with.
I think I agree with you on the illness in the ranks. I actually did run one in my sideboard over the weekend. I played Doomsday in the same Power 9 challenge. Lost in the top 4 to Rich Shea, who you then demolished in the final. And I had the illness in the ranks against Rich Shea with Mentor, and it was like, okay, let's see what this card does. And it's just like, okay, I mean, it bought me a turn, but I didn't do anything with my extra turn or two. So I'm not sure it was actually worth the sideboard slot at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
every card in the storm deck kind of does a lot. Like you have
Right.
fast mana, I mean, you can cut rituals here and there, but there's not too much you want to cut. You don't want to cut your other disruption of discard, You don't want to cut your big cards. You don't want to cut your mana. So you got to make a cut somewhere. And one card may not seem like a lot, but you're trying to put together a lethal storm count and cast a bunch of spells that are relevant. And that's not always a gimme.
Yeah, Doomsday combo is a little bit more compact, and I still didn't think it was worth the spot. Interesting though. I now, what do you make of the rise of these storm decks? I mean, we've got 2 storm decks still left in our play-in tournament. You won that tournament with Storm. There was another Storm in the top 8. There was a third Storm in the top 16 of the Power 9 Challenge. There were also 2 different Doomsday decks in the top 8 of the Power 9 Challenge. Myself and the guy who had the #1 seed. I think ORS was his nick. Is this a reaction to Chalice getting restricted, or what's going on with all the Storm?
Yeah, this is a combination to there being a little less workshops being a little less powerful, and the fact that Dark Petition hasn't been around for that long. This is a card that was only printed earlier this year, and so it takes some time for people in the vintage community to adapt, and that's something that, of course, we've seen with Jace Vryn's Prodigy, that now yourself and many others have been calling better than Jace the Mind Sculptor, or more likely to show up, and in a lot of decks you'd prefer it. Jace came out in the exact same set as Dark Petition. So these are things that just take a little bit of time. It can be hard for things to change. People tend to get set in the decks that they like to play. The Shops players tend to play Shops. The Delver players tend to play Delver. And so it can definitely take time for people to adjust to play a completely different archetype. And there aren't that many Storm players in the world. And once you start trying cards like Dark Petition, this was a card that I tried in Legacy that I played in the recent GP. And I had a 12-3 finish in Legacy with Storm, and it's just much, much, much more powerful in Vintage. And you don't really have to go for it. I lost on camera some less than 1%ers with ad nauseum, and so that can be a pretty scary thing to go through. And it just doesn't really happen in Vintage. The Yawgmoth's Bargain draws a lot more cards than the ad nauseum consistently, so it just does incredible things, and you can get to that 5 mana very easily. I actually wrote a deck of the day that should be going up on Channel Fireball tomorrow about the deck that I played, but
Nice.
the fast mana that you have between the 5 Moxes, the Lotus, the Soul Ring, the Mana Crypt, the Mana Vault, and then you still get to play the same rituals as you do in Legacy. It's just very easy to get to 5, and it's just basically Demonic Tutor at that point, and Demonic Tutor is so powerful in a deck that can just go off like that.
All right, enough talking about Dark Petition Storm. Let's go watch some. We are ready for the 5th and final match of the night. One of these guys gets to come back next week and take part in, I guess, the Final Four. Is that what we're going to call Week 3? We will. This is the 4th elimination match of the night. We've got, Nick Detweiler is through to next week. Reed Duke is through to next week. And David Ochoa is through to next week. Ochoa will actually be playing against the winner of this match. So Willarade's got a Null Rod, and he could play it early, but there's no other land in that hand if he goes for that. Do you keep those 6? You can't, right?
This is a pretty bad hand. I mean, you get a Scry.
I mean, I guess you could also Lotus Jace.
That's the defense for everything, is you get a Scry.
Ah.
Lotus Jace with Force of Will is not bad, especially with a Scry, though. So if he does hit a land on top and is able to go Lotus, Jace, and I guess you can't do it all if he's on the play, which he is.
On the play. Well, it's on the
okay,
play.
That's a pretty big knock, because you can't play a Null Rod for multiple turns at the earliest, and you obviously can't scry multiple times. So even if you are more likely to hit that first land, your odds of hitting the second one are pretty low. That being said, if it's a black land, it's still not great. This is a tough one.
What do you think of David's hand?
I think with the first turn Jace that you're going to keep it with Forcible Backup, because you get to see enough cards with the Jace that you're hoping to find what you need, and that you can do it without lands, that maybe you'll hit land and Preordain.
Wow. Well,
Dave's hand is...
And so did Dave. Dave's got Tolarian Academy with no artifact mana. So he's got just the 1 swamp for mana, but he's on the draw and he's got a Git Probe.
Yeah, his hand is not good, but it's not
flawed
terrible.
but good enough. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
I don't know if I'm at good enough. It's close.
Might cash it in?
I would be very tempted to cash it in.
I think I keep it on the draw. I would cash it in.
It's very reasonable to keep, but I'd be extremely tempted to mulligan. I think this is...
Wow. Ula sacked for black mana, which I think telegraphs the Null Rod coming up, and he's going to lead with this Cabal Therapy.
I think this is horrific.
On Dark Ritual, which is going to hit. Crazy game start. Ularade keeps Black Lotus as his only mana source, sacrifices it to blind name with Cabal Therapy, and presumably play a Null Rod. Knocks the Dark Ritual out of David's hand, and now there's a Null Rod.
Well, Ole knows the top card of his library, and we
True.
don't.
That is true.
Assuming he kept on top. Not only would I not have done that, I don't know that I would have ever thought to do that because of how good turn 1 Jace is, and that is the only reason I would consider keeping the hand. That being said, it's not that insane because by therapying away Dark Ritual and putting Null Rod down, you're cutting off most of Dave's mana in his entire deck.
Yeah,
Basically, half of his mana could be gone. Like, there is a chance that Dave could have kept a hand that will never cast a spell against this.
It's a pretty good combo, actually. I mean, I saw it as a possibility, sack the Lotus for the Null Rod. I kind of joked about it. But I didn't think about the way that Cabal Therapy taking out rituals combines with Null Rod to shut down almost everything. Oh, now David gets to Gugataxian Probe comboed with Cabal Therapy.
Yeah, that's big.
I mean, Ole, you don't force this. You just let it resolve.
Right. I mean, no reason to lose 2 cards.
Yeah, you just lose 1 card instead of 2.
Unless you knew that he was going to take Jace and that you really wanted the Jace, you could...
Well, his top card was a Gataxian Probe, by the way, not a land.
Reasonable.
We could be here for a while. These guys are, having a noodle fight right now. Just wet noodles slapping each other back and forth.
Yeah, Dave is nowhere near casting anything in his hand.
No, not even close.
It's a dead mana
vault is shut off by the Null Rod.
Now, that being said... Sorry, go ahead.
It's a Mox Sapphire with the Flareon Academy, right? That's what you were about to say?
No, I was actually going to say... That's a good point, but Dave's deck does have 3 ways to deal with Null Rod main. He has a Chain of Vapor and 2 Hercules Recalls, so that Mana Vault is not as dead as it would normally be. Is he 1 card short right now?
Yeah.
On a cruise?
5 cards in the yard with the fetch.
It's not bad, though. Still a good draw.
David can twist if he wants to. Ooh, he can end step Hercules the Null Rod back into Ula's hand, then untap and twist.
Yep, that is a possibility. He has Dark Petition online if he casts Hercules Recall.
You could Hercules, then Dark Petition, then twist, I think.
Well, if he's casting Dark Petition...
Yeah, get like a Lotus or something. Maybe he doesn't need to twist her at that point.
That's certainly a thing he could do.
The Hercules is a great draw for David, and all of a sudden, he's just in the driver's seat. Willa doesn't know it, but he needs to hit with his Treasure Cruise in a big way right now.
Is he casting Cruise, or is he going with Jace?
He top decked a fetch land, so he can
Right,
now...
but is he going to play Jace, or is he going to play Treasure Cruise? I would imagine he's leading on Jace here, but that might not be true.
Yeah, he doesn't know David
better for him.
He's going to cruise.
It's unfortunate having to get rid of therapy, but so be it. All right, it's a good cruise.
Flusterstorm is a good card. Wow.
Well, Dave's got some options here.
Was he supposed to respond to the cruise with Hercules? That would be crazy, right? That's just the psychic play, not the correct play.
I think it's crazy because he could just play Mox Null Rod off the cruise or something along those lines. And
yeah, you're right. It's one of those plays that only comes up because you can see the exact hands.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that Ole would Flusterstorm or Hercules Recall anyway.
No?
I mean, it might be correct to do so, but that's a tough thing to do as your only permission spell against a Storm deck. I mean, he knows some of the cards. Well, he knows all the cards in Dave's hand, doesn't he? Where all 3 of these are here when he probed, besides Hercules Recall. So I think he's actually working with perfect information once Recall goes on the stack. I could be wrong about that.
Ula does not know about the Hercules. He does know about the Twister and the Dark Petition. I'm not sure on the Desire. I think he knows everything but the Hercules. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think he knows everything but the Hercules. At that point, you probably do Flusterstorm the Hercules, right?
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Because you know Time Twister and or Dark Petition is coming.
Right, and this would just force Dave to essentially Time Twister if he bricks, which is completely fine, I think, for Ula.
All right. Does Ula Flusterstorm this end step Hercules? We think he should.
Yeah, against this specific hand of which he knows all the cards, it makes a lot of sense to do so. That Mana Vault's just too good.
Yeah. Man, they both top decked that sequence, right? David top decked the Hercules, but before he could cast it, Ula top decked the fetch land into the cruise into the Flusterstorm. Now what? Do you blind twist?
Well, if he doesn't, Dak's going to come down and just steal the Mana Vault, which actually just turns off Academy, too.
True.
As one potential line. Like, if he just plays Bloodstained Mire past, Ole still has perfect information to know that just taking the Mana Vault is putting Dave in a tough spot. Even though the Mana Vault, of course, is turned off by the Null Rod, it's essentially the Mox Sapphire, as you mentioned, for the Academy, and, you know, kind of limits what Dave can draw to actually cast his big spells.
Yeah, David seems to agree with us. Let's get some new hands.
It's interesting to not
chain.
set the Bloodstained. Well, I guess it doesn't matter.
Chain and a Hercules.
Yeah, Probe and Therapy as well, so lots of good stuff.
Wow, yeah. And Ula has a Misstep.
Both players hit pretty strong.
Interesting. Feels to me like David hit a little better.
Yeah, this game could definitely play out interestingly.
David's the one who's going to have the information, too.
Assuming does this probe resolve, or is it on the stack?
It's on the stack. I don't think you misstep the.
No, I wouldn't.
There's just too many good one drops, like Dark Ritual, Cabal Therapy. There's just better one mana spells. Now, how do you play this if you're David? He drew Sapphire, by the way.
Sapphire is not a good one right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, he could have sacked his Bloodstained Mire and tried to leave Tolarian Academy untapped, but I think leaving the Bloodstained Mire was better because it gives him access to different colors of mana, like, for example, the black that he's fetching up here. Next turn, though, the Mox Sapphire is a Mox Sapphire with Academy.
It is interesting that but before you cast your draw 7s, you would typically fetch, but because it would have just shuffled the Bloodstained Mire back in with the Time Twister, it doesn't actually accomplish all that much. So, Dave working with perfect information. Therapy is, of course, going to get misstepped.
Chasm Skulker. Chasm Skulker?
Chasm Stalker, I believe.
Stalker? You can see how many times I've played with this card.
I believe
it is kind of cool.
It was a good card in draft a few times for me. It usually wasn't even that good in draft, to be honest. It was solid.
I had a cube deck. My best stories are all cube. I had it with Consecrated Sphinx in a cube deck. That was good times.
Yeah, the thing is, once you have Consecrated Sphinx and you're drawing those extra cards, you're one of those I want to win really, really hard, guys, though. I know that. Like, sure, I was drawing 3 cards a turn, but also I had another big creature that couldn't deal with the 4/6 flyer, so the 100 finished them. I almost never like not fetching before I use my preordain.
Yeah, you don't want to scry stuff to the bottom and shuffle it back in.
Mm-hmm. Just going to leave Flusterstorm up.
Yeah, okay.
He has no information to go with to just use a therapy, so...
Yeah, it's blind therapy versus leave up Flusterstorm. I think the Flusterstorm plays.
Yep, pretty
Makes
easy
a lot
choice
more
there.
sense.
Wow, that's a great draw for Dave. That cannot be Flusterstormed. He knows every card except for 2 now. Oh, is it 3? Oh, he has 2 preordained. So
Skulker, Gush, Cabal Therapy are all new.
Yeah, so...
But he knows the Flusterstorm, so he knows that Necro is a very safe lead here.
Well, with 3 unknown cards, there's a reasonable chance at something that can counter a Necro, although...
Sorry, I meant the Necro plays around the stuff that he does know.
Yes. Is there Spellproof in Ole's list? If so, I think you want to lead on Yeah, exactly what Dave's doing. Play a Mox first, despite it not doing anything. Academy makes more mana. If there's a card like Spell Pierce in his list, but I haven't actually checked. It is pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Dave has it open though. So Ole has the chance to respond with Gush here. He probably has to. Like Necropotence is just kind of game
He's
over.
not beating Necropotence. He needs to find a Force of Will. He lets it resolve. Does not go for the Gush.
Interesting.
Huh. Wow. Dave gets to set aside a hand, and he's got Tolarian Academy untapped for both Hercules and Chain on Ula's turn.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Now they're kind of taking up some room in his hand for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, he.
But still,
I was going to say he could cast one now, but of course the Academy doesn't hold over to the next turn, so I guess he really can't. That being said, he's under no clock. It's not like he has to with Necro next turn, so.
Right. He sets aside 5.
The first card's always bargain.
Bargain is, of course, going to get discarded. Land, Dark Ritual land, and can't quite see the last card yet, but I'm sure we're about to find out. It is, Dark Petition. How about Dark Petition? Is that a good card here?
It's decent.
Yeah.
So Ole's going to need a big turn, or this game is going to end.
Is this one of those turns where Ula just goes blind name Cabal Therapy and hope to hit Tendrils? Make you exile your Tendrils? Then you can't win the game?
Well, how does he make him exile it?
Necropotence is in play.
Is Necropotence whenever you discard a card?
Yes. Whenever you discard a card, it gets exiled. If you hit Tendrils while Necro's in play, you can't win the game with Storm.
Fair enough, yeah.
Like, that's probably his best chance. It's not going to work, but it totally could.
Interestingly, it's kind of... he doesn't actually have to name Tendrils, because he can just name the best card to name, and if there is Tendrils in his hand, he can just follow that up with the Stalker and sacrifice it to win the game immediately.
That's, sure. Fair enough.
So he actually gets...
He can get the information to hit.
Yeah, he should probably just lead on Therapy. That's the correct play. This is not something I would consider doing.
If you're going to Gush, you probably want the Skulker in play first.
Did he not already play a land? Yeah, I don't think the tokens are relevant enough. I don't think I'd do that. I mean, he is threatening to win next turn, but...
I mean, I think he's going to be Cabal Therapy. Oh, I see. Now he has to choose between Cabal Therapy and Flusterstorm. Is the problem?
Yeah.
And he's going to choose Therapy.
So if he just leads on Therapy, he can still cast, like, this turn's going to play out the exact same way. He's just going to have information before he does it. So he could still play Stalker, he could still Gush. It's going to be the exact same. But it's not really going to work now.
David, not interested in losing his ability to kill the Null Rod. He's going to bounce the Chasm Skulker, so there's no flashback on Therapy. That's quite clever. And, oh, by the way, 2 mana floating so that he can still Hercules.
Yeah. I mean, he has a repetitive ritual, and he has a repetitive tutor. So the problem, like,
Ula's actually getting really punished for the sequencing, too. If Ula had led with Therapy, then he could play Skulker. After it resolves, Ula's the first one that has priority. He can immediately sack it to Therapy.
Yeah,
this chain is a one-of, but Ula's definitely getting punished for sequencing it the way he did.
It is a one-of, but at the same time, it just made no sense to do it this way based on basically everything that I can think of. What you just mentioned is extremely true and relevant, and also, even if he wasn't planning on playing the Stalker to flash back, just having that information before you cast all your spells is a huge one. And so if that had happened, he might be fine here.
I think David should also respond with Hercules, right?
Yes.
I mean, if Ula, you don't want to give Ula the chance to blind name it. It's just so good to bounce. No, he let him blind name it, and Ula's like, "Look, I want the Tendrils. Are you holding Tendrils?"
The No Rod doesn't win the game here. Williams just wins the game. No artifacts.
Yeah,
Easily.
I understand. There's no reason not to. What are you just keeping the Hercules for Storm count on your turn? replay all my artifacts.
I mean, I think that you're fine with them casting or taking your Hercules here, as long as more bad things don't happen. Like if you cast Hercules here and they get follow up with Lotus, Mox, etc., maybe like what if he goes like Lotus, Mox, Pyromancer, Time Walk? I don't know. He
Sure.
actually just untaps and wins with Bolt. Like he actually could lose the game that way.
I would Hercules the Null Rod. It's hard to resist making the guy discard a 5th card to hand size, right? Just feels good to make somebody do that. You're right, though.
I guess he can't have a Lotus. He played that turn 1 to play the Null Rod, but the
It's been
rest
twistered in
is
since
accurate.
then. The Lotus is
Oh,
back in the
yeah.
deck from the Twister.
That is true. I always forget the Time Twister.
In any case, David has gone from what 6 mana with that hand to 16?
Millions.
No, 13, I think, plus that
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah, the hand is another ton.
And Ola's also down to 10s. I mean, this is just an easy ritual, DT for whatever, Dark Petition for Tendrils game. I guess
Yeah,
he doesn't know for sure that there's no Force of Will in Ola's hand.
That's true, but I think he can play around it decently well.
I mean, the fact that he has both of these tutors, like this Tendrils is probably already lethal, and if it got Force of Willed, he could use the Dark Petition for Tendrils. I think he's got Storm 5 already, right?
Yeah, well, this is the 3rd spell, so you can just get Tendrils here, play Dark Petition, and
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it gets countered, yeah.
Yep.
All right, David Williams going to take a 1-0 lead. It's a really interesting game.
Love to see how this game plays out if he goes turn 1 Jace. Not that I don't know whether it's. To me, it seemed crazy.
The Null Rod?
And I do think it is a crazy play. That being said, it might just be right. Maybe he would have lost this game worse, but I would love to have seen how it played out.
More Storm Count. Hercules, target myself. Pick them all up, cast them again. Don't actually get to carry the damage into the next game, but hard to resist sometimes.
Yeah. I super played around Swords to Plowshare against Ricochet in game 1 of the finals this weekend, where I just cast Hercules multiple times, Yawgmoth's Will, Hercules again, so I stormed for like 24, I think it was.
They do sometimes miss Swords to Plowshare my own creatures response. You're not going to miss that one.
I could.
And David overkills by 4. By 4 copies, 8 damage. Now, what happens with the sideboards? Defense Grid seems like the most relevant thing going on here, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. Defense Grid is pretty nice. He's got a lot of great interaction, as all Delver decks do, and a lot of it gets turned off or becomes a lot harder to actually cast, and so a Resolve Defense Grid can be extremely challenging for these blue decks to beat. That being said, you're looking to get an early clock down, and so Defense Grid is kind of a brick against those fast clocks, but...
Well, his bolts go to the sideboard. The Pyroblast goes to the sideboard, which is mildly surprising, but not crazy. Willa has Grafdigger's Cage that he can bring in to shut off Yogwell, which is, I mean, it's not amazing, especially against the 4 Dark Petition version of the Storm deck that can just chain Dark Petitions together for enough Storm to win without a Yogwell. Looks like he's bringing in a couple Ingot Chewers, he's bringing in the Strip Mine, and what is that, 1 Cage? And the second Null Rod?
Yeah.
Something like that.
The Stalker staying in.
The Skulker, yes.
Skulker.
Skulker.
The card that does the stuff.
Or doesn't do the stuff. Gets bounced with Chain of Vapor, apparently.
It did that.
But Ula could have an 0-2 night here. He was sitting pretty coming into tonight, having won last week, sitting in the winner's bracket, but...
Roland was as well, right? Oh, no, he lost.
Roland had already lost, right? Exactly.
Yeah, he won the first match.
Right. All right, game number 2. David Williams up a game. The winner survives to next week. We could actually have a pair of Storm versus Workshop matchups.
Another no-lander.
Wow. Yeah, Ula can't draw lands. Illness in the ranks comes in for David. He likes that card. He was talking about it when he was doing commentary earlier too.
Well, this second hand is fantastic though. Only because it has Ancestral Recall, but
Well, yeah,
it's a good one to have.
indeed.
You'd rather like one of these preordains be a misstep or something, but it's pretty nice.
Wow, David's hand doesn't go anywhere.
Nope.
It's infinite mana, approximately.
Being said, he's got 2 draws at it and a lot of cards for potential turn ones.
Right. So you keep that, right? You keep the
Yep.
fast mana, especially on the draw with a Git Probe. I agree.
Yeah, I think you have to. I mean, you have Probe, you have Duress, you have Illness to potentially stop a quick clock against you, and you have all the mana in the world. So, there are a number of cards you can draw to essentially just win the game.
Yeah, you're just on the hook to draw one in the first 2-3 draw steps. But I'm with you. I also keep it.
Yeah, I guess you can't actually do all that much. You can't cast a Bargain, can't cast a Mind's Desire. Necro is a good one, but you're actually pretty far away from casting like a Wheel of Fortune or a Time Twister. So
Draws Academy, which the Lion's Eye will turn on for at least 1 mana. Ula Ancestral into no lands. He did find a Null Rod. And
yeah,
a
I mean these
misstep.
preordains tend to be lands. It's
Fair.
tough looking at 3 cards to not find anything you want. I think that this hand is pretty nice. I don't think he was upset about it, at least.
Yeah, finding that misstep is particularly nice, but I don't think he misstep the probe.
No, he'll misstep the Duress, though.
Yeah.
Just another ritual, looks like.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Now he can cast Bargain, should he draw it.
That is true, but he won't know if the coast is clear. And honestly, odds aren't that great with this many preordains that Ole won't find the action that he's looking for. I mean, 1 Force of Will is probably just... I mean, that's going to be tough to beat. He has no action.
Yep. David kept a mana-heavy hand, and his first 2 cards off the top were mana and mana.
I think this is definitely a time where you need to be fetching before you're preordaining.
Wow. He's going to Windmill Slam Null Rod. Get this on the table, says Ularade. Not digging for the Force of Will.
Yeah, you don't generally need a Force of Will against against an opponent where you've cast Null Rod. That being said, if Williams just draws a Bargain here, it's game over.
Yeah, it was a Mox Jet.
Yeah, that's a bit unfortunate for him.
Yeah, he play Illness, and now that hand is a bunch of Storm. Now what David wants is a Mind's Desire. He top decks Mind's Desire, and it's just like, bleh, here's my hand, Mind's Desire for 6.
That is true. Yeah, that is currently true. I already used the Mental Mist. He finds another one, though. Dave doesn't actually have a second Black Source to get going on the first turn. So if his first ritual gets misstepped, should Ole find another one, sure. that would slow Dave down by a full turn with the Mox Jet being turned off. Yeah, Dave's hand is bad now. Ole is definitely far away in the driver's seat. This game is actually going to be tough to lose, I think. The dig is another great draw.
Yeah. Yeah, he needs to find a Force of Will to make sure a Bargain top deck doesn't beat him, does Olerade. Mm-hmm. And then he has to fade basically the card Mind's Desire, is how I see it.
Yeah, but again, he has a number of draws that will help him against Mind's Desire as well.
I'm just trying to paint scenarios where Williams can win from here.
Yeah, he could potentially, like right now, resolve a Time Twister. That would be pretty good. Like he can play everything and then Time Twister with tons of mana, and there's a lot of hands that will just win on the spot. Ancestral Recall right now from Williams would be a great draw, and just kind of get him back into this game.
Yeah, we keep talking about these preordains. Ola needs to find himself a Force of Will. He could have actually DT'd for 1. I don't think that would have been insane. I guess he hasn't actually seen Williams' hand, right? He's not had a Gitaxian probe of his own. It's only Williams that has info about Ula's hand. Keep going through preordains, or do you drop Jace here?
You keep going through preordains. There's so many cards you can find that will ensure that you'll live for a very long time. You're not under any pressure to get that Jace down right now. Like, you really just want to be able to stop at least a ritual, should Williams find something like Dark Petition, or to be able to stop the big spell if you could find a Force of Will or a Flusterstorm. So Misstep, Flusterstorm, Force of Will are the key cards you're looking for.
I agree. Wow, he's still digging. He found a misstep with that one.
Yeah, that actually shuts off Williams's jaws at cards like Dark Petition and Bargain for a turn.
For a turn.
But he would have access to them next turn. The turn after this, I guess.
It's not like Ula has a clock.
No.
David does have...
Time is on his side, though. He just has the ability to go through his deck at a great pace. And the Storm deck, its weakness is that, it has a bunch of rituals, it has a bunch of discard spells. It actually doesn't have a lot of ways to dig through the deck. There are no preordains. There's a Brainstorm, there's a Ponder, there's an Ancestral, there's a couple draw 7s, and there's a Bargain and a Necro. There's 4 Gataxian Probes. There are no preordains. This isn't like the Legacy version that can play a bunch of Ponders. That plays 4 Ponders. You don't have a lot of other ways. A lot of things are 1-for-1. Dark Petition, Demonic Tutor. And so the card velocity, you just can't get really far ahead on cards. And you don't have the same selection that a deck like Grixis Therapy does.
Discards the Jace. We now see that second mental misstep is what came off that last preordain.
I would have been inclined to discard either a land or the Skulker over the Jace, but the Jace is not great here either.
Misstep the probe?
No, I wouldn't.
I think it's close. Given that you have 2 missteps, I think it's pretty close.
If I have 2 missteps, I'm just thrilled I have 2 missteps against this deck. They're really good. They are really good.
Well, now it's Ula's turn to get some information. He finally draws a Gataxian Probe of his own. He can see what he's up against. And yeah, he may see this hand and start kicking himself for misstepping a probe, but then again, David is clearly just hoping to draw stuff off the top of his deck. So, countering the Git probe it's a draw step, right? It's almost a time walk. And now Ula does use Demonic Tutor for Force of Will.
It is almost a time walk, but it's so much more of a time walk if you're just able to counter one of these rituals.
Speaking of storm draws, storm cards, it's not Mind's Desire, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that is shockingly close to being lethal off the top of the deck.
It's interesting that you would want your opponent to misstep a Dark Ritual with a hand like this because it adds to the storm count. That being said, Williams does not have the second black mana, so
right.
he actually could not follow up.
If he has a second black mana source, though, the misstep on the ritual is
great for him.
It's great. It's close to lethal. Ula can actually Force of Will 1 copy of Tendrils. You kind of have to overkill by 1, but now Ula's going to see what he's up against. He actually slow rolling that probe for a turn kind of worked out here. He gets to see the Tendrils.
Yeah.
Which is a scary card on this board.
Well, this is kind of great for Williams because he can actually just lead Dark Ritual and force your opponent to misstep it because otherwise they're likely dead against your hand.
Yup.
And so you're basically just cashing in your Dark Rituals for mental missteps and Force of Wills right here.
Wow, and Ula did pay 2 life for that probe too, by the way.
Yeah. So Williams right now should just lead on Dark Ritual.
You lead the okay. He's gonna feed the writ into the misstep.
Yeah, that's the right play. He gets to do the same thing next turn.
Yeah,
like Williams.
Ula keeps paying 2 life too.
So good. No, I know, but there's a lot of things this dig can find that can still just shut him out.
David could also draw a second black source.
Well, I'm saying a card like Flusterstorm can just shut him out, potentially.
Sure. The card Flusterstorm was what Ula wants, you're right.
Yeah, although this Duress is going to be good too. He needs kind of a misstep end of Flusterstorm, or at least a blue card for the Force of Will.
Yeah, Diggs is only blue card right now. I feel like David is actually a favorite here. Is that crazy? It's close. I don't know if
he is or not, but it's definitely close. He has enough spells to win. So
right.
If this dig is all blanks, if this dig just fizzled, then Dave wins on the spot. So he can't be a big dog at the very least.
There's one misstep and a blue card. That's kind of the best Ula could come up with.
The blue card's a great one too.
Right. It
Is he
said,
gonna go down to 10?
do you cruise? It's
Well,
your blue card. I think you do. I mean, odds are one of the three is going to be blue, right?
it's well either that or therapy. Therapy's great.
That's
He
true.
left up the black mana.
Oh, therapy would
He
be
knows.
insane here.
He knows the whole hand. Oh yeah, this
Finds
is
a
also
blue
a ton of
card.
damage. Yeah, he kind of found it all there.
Did
Can
he?
Dave win though? Well, he found
He
blue
found a
card.
blue card. That's all he found.
He already had the misstep off the dig. I'm just saying the turn
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in
The
general.
turn.
The cruise itself, no.
Therapy. Boy, second black source for David, and he just wins. No Rod. So No Rod is doing pretty good work here.
Well, he
That
wasn't
said,
just in. There was force and misstep, but
all right. David is not quite dead. Right? He gets one more turn, but not two.
well, it depends if this preordain gets cast and reveals anything of note. I don't know that there's anything left. He's already ancestraled and cruised, right? So it's does he find? Can he chain a bunch of card draw
Gush.
together? Oh,
Maybe
Gush would be really
Preordain
big.
into Gush is +3. So this game is coming down right now to how big can he grow Chasm Skulker. That is the game we're playing.
That being said, if Dave doesn't draw a black source and his ritual gets count, actually, he barely
No
has
blue
enough
card
mana
right
to even
now?
cast tendrils right now. He can only get to
Ball
5 mana total. Yeah, and there's
Ball
Cabal
Therapy is a big
Therapy.
game.
Yeah, that can just.
And
end
Ula
this.
has seen the first 4 of those cards, so
Mhm.
I mean, probably name just Tendrils.
Yeah, I mean he can name Dark Ritual. Dave has no mana.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right.
he gets to see the rest of the hand. Like he can actually name both. He can, the stock. There's no reason to keep the Skulker in play. It's going to be a bunch of creatures in play. Nothing that can deal with that. So, oh no, there's an illness in the ranks. He actually can't do that.
Can't sack the Skulker to make all the 1/1s because they die on the spot.
Okay, so
He
that's
names
not.
Dark Ritual.
Well, Olet does not actually have a black card. So if he draws like a Cabal Ritual, which I think he sideboarded them all out.
What happens? I mean, Williams has. Sorry, Ula has no blue card to go with his Force of Will now.
Right.
Oh, he's going to play Pyromancer and sack it to flashback. Okay. He can flashback to Therapy. Is there a top deck for David? I guess you have to name Tendrils this time. And then David has no top deck?
None of these cards do anything. Dave can only get up to 3 mana next turn with his hand. So he's not going to be able to, do anything that adds enough mana and can.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think if. Can Ula leave him with no top decks?
Yeah, I believe that this leaves David dead. I don't think there are Cabal Rituals even in his deck. Time Twister. That is
Right.
the one thing, and there aren't a lot of good Time Twisters even.
It was a land.
He's going to duress for information and concede.
Yep. Wow, that was a crazy game. Looks like we're going to get a third one.
Yeah, that game was kind of awesome.
Chasm
Dave
Skulker
actually almost won
win.
from, I did not think, a possibly winnable sports state.
Yeah, no, that was shockingly close.
He got very lucky to get to that point, although pretty unlucky early in the game and rather unlucky late in the game. So definitely a lot of swings there.
Yeah. David seems content with the way he's got his deck set up. Will is poking around, reshuffling a little bit. I don't think he's made any actual changes.
Yeah.
It's a cool match. I mean, this matchup is interesting. I mean, both decks have enough hand destruction that they get to interact with each other.
It's true.
Get a lot of information. Get a surprising amount of interaction for a combo versus Delver matchup. David on the play for game 3 seems big.
Yeah, for sure. See if
Loser
Ole has a
is-
land for the first time.
Nah, he has not drawn an opening 7 with a land yet. You make a good point. David's got defense grid. Does he have any acceleration? We can only see 6 of the cards. I see 6.
Only land is Strip Mine.
Jeez. Sapphire Strip. Ula has put a lot of value on Null Rod, but I don't know that I want to turn off my own Mox Ruby Leaving myself with just strip mine. I don't think I keep that if I'm a Willa. Do you
No.
keep David's hand?
I think Goal is a pretty easy ship. Dave's is, oh, it's bad.
It's below average, but do you mulligan? Neither player mulligans.
Well, I would have lost on the parlay of neither player mulligan. Tell you that much. No, I don't think I
Now
mulligan
Williams used
Dave's
to
hand.
look at it too and said, "What did you keep? What are you doing, Olirade?"
Well, he really is going to tilt off if he just sees like a turn 1 island of some sort.
True. Yeah, this one game determines which player gets to keep playing in the tournament. The loser is out. The winner comes back next week, where somebody is going to win a spot in the Vintage Super League.
Now, Dave has to be thrilled with the hand that he sees Ole have. If he doesn't hit like a mana source here, he gets to play around Strip Mine by not sacrificing having a fetch land, and he knows that there's no interaction to actually deal with this defense grid. So once that defense grid lands, he knows that the missteps are going to be turned off, and he can start vamp for Ancestral and have Yogwill, and good things start to happen from there.
Yeah.
That being said, if Ole's hand was better, that would not be the case at all.
Willa drew young Pyromancer, so now he has a choice as to whether he wants to play the Pyromancer first or the Null Rod. I think he kept
Pyromancer, right?
I think so, but like neither one of us would have kept that hand because neither one of us value turn 1 Null Rod as much as Willa does. This is totally consistent with the way he's played this matchup. He thinks Null Rod is devastating to David.
Yeah,
and so he's just willing to win plus slam it.
I think that this line has almost locked him into losing this game.
His mana's down to just strip mine.
Yeah, the defense grid is going to land. Wow, he's casting the Vamp Tutor. This is... Oh, I really disagree with this. He knows about the misstep.
It's super slow if you don't cast it, right? You're casting it.
Cares? You know your opponent has nothing. They don't even have a mana source. You get to play defense grid, and you get to untap and vamp into... You can upkeep vamp, draw Ancestral, and game ends, I think. Now he has no action.
Wow, he's dressing. He's not playing the defense grid.
I don't know what's happening.
Is he just taking Preordain or Jace? He can't take Jace.
Take Jace.
He's just taking the... I mean, now even if Ula draws one blue source, his hand is still kind of weak.
Yeah, I think that... Wow, I think Dave has really hurt himself this game.
I mean, if his Vamp Tutor had resolved, that turn could have been... No, I don't know.
He knew the misstep.
Yeah. He could have just done nothing. It's so hard to squander a mana in Vintage. That's...
Yeah, but it's so hard to squander your only spell that can get you action in Vintage. Wow. You know it's going to resolve. You have defense grid, and your opponent can't pressure you. Like, it's just too good. Like, that...
Fair.
I feel like I can convincingly say that you should not do that.
Okay.
Like, the play that Ole made to lead on Null Rod in an earlier game over Jace, I can see where he's going with that. Like, it's not the play I would have made. That being said, I mean, it shocked me. Like I said, I wouldn't have even considered it, but it was kind of cool. This play, I'm confident.
Fair enough.
Because now, what do you want? Like, Ole just has all the time in the world. Like, he can't do anything. He could have just vamped for anything. Like, it could have been Ancestral, it could have been Necro. Like, it's gonna resolve.
Yep. What do you want to deprive Ole of if you're Pyromancer?
Pyromancer, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a threat.
Willa still can't cast a spell. His mana consists of a Strip Mine.
Yeah, this Null Rod is actually only impacting Ole in this game. So things get interesting when Dave draws like a Wheel of Fortune or Time Twister type card here.
Yeah, he wants to draw one-sided card drawing. He wants Ancestral. He wants Necro.
Yeah.
Does not want to...
Ant Tutor. Demonic Tutor would be a nice one. He's really far away from... I guess not really far away, but
he's
relatively far away from Dark Petition.
He's one.
But there's a Strip Mine in play too. So like when he plays the fourth land, there's a reasonable chance Ole will strip.
Yeah. He's just going to strip now.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I mean, if he did draw Necropotence, there's a reasonable chance that he wouldn't have had the land to play it. So, oh wow,
wow,
punching himself so bad.
Do you think David should give any consideration to Yogg-Will for like a land and a Vamp Tutor?
No, I don't
I
think
guess
so.
it's land Vamp Tutor Git Probe.
Yeah, it's close. Oh, yeah, I can see it.
It does now turn on Dark Petition next turn as well by doing it.
True.
I like the value of Yogg-Will. I think that's the right play here. I mean, I agree with you about the whole Vamp Tutor sequencing. He wouldn't have been in this position if he had
Right.
slowed well with his Vamp Tutor for after the defense grid, but Yawgmoth's Will is a land, an additional card, and pick the top card of my library. It's a pretty good combo. Of course, now what do you put on top?
I think it's Ancestral. Like, Necro is still good, but he is down to 12.
Right.
And Yawgmoth's Will is out of his deck. So, it's close. He has Dark Petition that's online next turn. I don't know.
He kind of already has Necro if that's what he wants. He just plays Dark Petition for it.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what makes Ancestral pretty appealing.
He can't cast them both, though.
No, not in the same turn, but again, he's under nothing. Ole
Fair.
can't cast a spell in his hand. He drew a land finally.
A land that lets him cast
Cabal Therapy?
the Cabal Therapy, right? Not even the Jace, because he sacked that Strip Mine. Does Ula know anything about David's hand? I don't think he does. I think he saw that Yogg-Will a million years ago, right? Has he? Yeah, Ula played a Gitaxian Probe a couple of turns ago.
Yeah, the petition just came recently.
Right. So it's a blind name for Ula.
Well, you can rule out a number of things. Like, clearly there's not going to be like a Dark Ritual in Dave's hand. He could have cast that before the Yawgmoth's Will and cast, Duress and Cabal Therapy and ripped his hand apart. I guess he could have drawn it off the Gitaxian Probe, but one of the two cards was not Dark Ritual.
Dark Petition's a pretty reasonable name for Ula.
Yep, totally.
It's a 4-of that David hasn't been able to cast.
Yeah, the other cards that you just couldn't cast at other points are going to be typically artifacts, which you don't care about anyway.
This is a no-rod in play. Yeah, I think the right blind name is Dark Petition here, which will hit if that's what Ula comes up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could potentially buy him enough time if Dave vamped for, let's say, Ancestral Recall, if he whiffs for Jace to get online. Like, there's just no clock, nothing happening at all from Rade's side.
Right. Tendrils is what he names. Crazy. David got Necro with the Vamp Tutor. So he's going to Necro up.
If Ole thinks that this game is almost over, which it is, Vamp Tutor just happened, then naming Tendrils makes a lot of sense because Yawgmoth's Will is actually out of the deck. He's already cast it.
So if you hit it, the game's over. David can't win. It's a good point. It's the way he tried to win game 1. And David has played this. I actually like the way he's played this. He could have Dark Petitioned for the Necro, but this way, he draws the Necro, he plays it, he gets to set aside a big hand, and then go to next turn with a Necro hand and a Dark Petition, planning to just do some stuff, petition for Tendrils, win. I like this line.
Let's be honest. Any line that involved Necropotence, you were going to be a fan of.
Oh, well, he only got 5. I'm not a fan of that part. I would have over-Necroed a little bit. Like, you don't want a Time Twister next turn, I don't think. Maybe you do.
I think that under Necroing in these type of spots where you actually do have a limited number of cards you can draw and you can deploy a bunch of resources, makes
fair.
a lot of sense when you're under zero pressure. Like, your opponent can't draw anything to get out from under defense grid to impact your next turn, and they can't play anything to threaten you, and there's no rod, so you're not even worried about, like, Lotus coming out and really, going crazy. I think that
like it, but I think you're right.
I think Ole is going to be going to the same out that you talked about earlier of having to flashback this therapy if he can get Jace online and just hope to hit Tendrils.
Yeah, we're back to David's turn, though. Is this just lethal? Jet, Ritual, Lion's Eye, Therapy, Petition for tendrils. Tendrils is 6.
Yeah, it's
You might need to petition for something in Twister. He can't flash back the Cabal therapies. He can't Yogg Will. I don't think petition for now. I think he has to twist if he wants to kill here.
yeah. I'm not sure why he cast Dark Ritual.
Well, he's clearly planning to kind of go off, but
But he
like the
can't
tendrils
do
has
it.
to, with Yogg Will exiled from the value will a couple of turns ago, he can't cast tendrils twice. Can only cast it once. He's kind of committed at this point, right?
No, I feel like there's some chance he just goes like therapy, draw some cards, and pass. But burning that Dark Ritual kind of
Yeah.
sucks because he's only has 6 life left. Like he's actually
Right.
could miss. Although
That's
Dark Petition
why.
makes it tough to do that.
But what is he dark petitioning for? Ancestral and trusting? Like he
No,
would twist her at that point.
I'm saying just having the Dark Petition in your hand if you're going to Necro again makes it tough to miss that there aren't too many bad cards in your deck. But it's certainly possible. I wonder if he forgot about Null Rod and he thought that this was just going to win. Alright, so the petition is getting cast. He is just Twistering. He's
Wow.
going to try to win this turn.
All right. Doesn't want to spend the mana on the Cabal therapy because he's going to get a whole mess of stuff. And
nothing.
Swing and a miss. Infinite Storm, but no ability to access the tendrils from his deck.
All right,
very
well,
happy mana burn is no longer a thing.
Yeah, he only gets to draw a few more cards off this Necro.
Yeah, 4.
Will he do anything? He has Time Walk. He just can't get a creature to play.
Yeah, he took the bolts out of his deck. David just has to Necro for 4, cross his fingers, and keep the Hercules because it generates a billion storm. Although that's a little scary. Maybe the chain is better. Oh, the chain's better because you don't want to bounce the defense grid. He's got all the storm he needs. He just has to hope that he sets aside 4 cards and wins next turn.
He can Hercules Ole on the turn that he's going to win. Doesn't care about the Lotus and Mox.
Oh, I want to Hercules myself so that I can replay my artifacts to make sure I get to 8 storm. I mean, the problem with his last hand is that he only got to 6 storm.
Yeah, he also has the option to actually chain his own Necro.
Get his draw step back.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Yeah, he can even do that end step. Probably should.
You can do it on the upkeep as just, for Storm.
But then he's down the mana. Yeah, he has to decide whether he cares more about Storm or mana.
I don't think he cares about the mana if you look at the left side of the hand.
He doesn't care about the black mana.
Well, he's got 4 Underground Seas in play.
All right, fine.
And
Galarian Academy too.
The Academy. Yeah.
He is going to chain his own.
He is literally mana flooded at this point. Oh, he's going to do it now.
Well, this way he gets to keep an extra card.
Sure.
I mean, I guess he could have done an end step after he sees what he's getting, but plays the Black Lotus. His plan is to Hercules himself for Storm at this stage.
Yeah, he gets to discard to the graveyard, which could be relevant potentially. No,
Good point. He just twisted. Well, look, if he draws the tendrils here, it's very relevant.
Yes. Well,
he could have easily twisted Ula into a therapy.
He could have bounced the Necro in response to that, but I guess that would turn on misstep. Yeah, and he definitely didn't want to do it during
can't do it on
because of misstep.
Also, it costs 3
extra.
He
costs him more too. Right.
Yeah, defense grid kicks that out of line.
Well, he bricked. He didn't draw anything.
Is there 1 card off the side? There's 1 card we can't see. Okay. Oh, and it's the Necropotence. No, there's 1 card we still can't see after the Necro that he's already discarded. If the card off to the right is bad, then he's all in on the next draw step.
Well, again, there's no clock.
You're right. He's not actually all in. He's just
this is
and
kind
top
of crazy.
deck. Wow, it was a Lotus Petal.
So, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Storm, plus a Hercules, but no ability to access his tendrils.
All right. So
Yeah, he needs to draw Dark Petition or Tendrils, and then he auto wins.
if Ole drew a creature, he actually wins on the spot. He can Chewer his own Null Rod and sacrifice Lotus to cast it and Time Walk and win. Any
Hilarious.
any creature will do, including just another Ingot Chewer.
Right. The first Ingot Chewer has to give his life to kill the Null Rod. The second one could be hard cast.
So right now, if I'm Ole, I'm just going for it. I assume that Dave has gotten there. I'm playing my Volcanic. I'm gushing, assuming that eighth card is bad, and I got a reasonable number of hits to win the game right now. And there's a defense grid, so I know I'm safe.
True. Yeah, the eighth card was a land.
All right, well, thins the deck at least.
Yeah. This match has just been crazy. All these games have been bizarre.
Yes, that is an accurate way to describe them. All right, so he is going to gush, and anything with the word summon in it will end the game. An insane game. Either way, though, he's going to get to Time Walk if he wants. I guess he's going to have to do it.
Either way, you time walk, but you
But if he
really, really,
bricks,
really
he's
want
just
a creature.
like, yeah.
It doesn't do anything. It doesn't do a whole lot. Sapphire is blank,
That's a
and there's a card off the edge. Yeah, there's one card we can't see.
Well, he's not moving quickly.
Uh-uh. Can our producer see the 10th card? Force of Will is the 10th card.
Wow, more brick. So both players just got to see a lot of cards
Brick.
with a lot of outs. Honestly,
we're building some sort of monument out of all these bricks.
This is so crazy. I just play out.
Yeah, play the time walk. Maybe you forgot to sideboard out a lightning bolt.
That would be funny. That's how Sam Black has won a game at National. I think one time, just having a card that was accidentally in his deck.
I just lost the stream. I think our producer is no longer sharing with us, unfortunately, accidentally. Yeah, we can definitely hear you. We just can't see. Ah, everything's back. Great. Don't know what that was, but we're now on a time walk turn. Ulurade has drawn Gitaxian Probe, which I guess you just cast, right?
Yeah, I don't really see a reason not to, although... Huh. It's going to kill defense grid.
Oh, because he's Force of Will now.
Yeah, and misstep. That being said, it doesn't actually do anything if Williams draws a good card, thanks to Duress. Oh no, he has the misstep for Duress.
And Force of Will and
yeah, it depends on what it actually is. He needs like a Mind's Desire.
All right, game on. Now what happens? David top decks a Mana Vault. More mana is not what he needed, but he's still under no pressure. We're just in top deck mode.
Yeah,
David needs to draw Demonic Tutor or Dark Petition or Tendrils. Ula needs to draw...
He needs to draw a Storm card.
Anything that can attack. Yeah, pretty much any Storm card will win for David.
But all the other cards get countered right now. As things lie.
So, sure. Fire off at the rest. See what you're up against.
It has to get misstepped.
Agreed.
Not really anything to think about here. If he takes your Force of Will, everything kills you. Not that he has any of it, but everything kills you.
Yeah, Willa doesn't know how bad David's hand is. All right. Play your Academy, shift a turn.
I'll hold on to it.
Therapy.
Well, Dave's hand doesn't do anything, so this
You can look
therapy
at
doesn't
it.
do much. Yep.
You can look at it first.
Oh,
I
I
think
don't.
that's
You do
better than
not want to cast Gataxian Probe, do you?
you don't
Not
have
if
a
you
blue
don't draw
card
a
for
blue
Force of
card.
Will. I mean,
This
you
is a
get to
real big
therapy
risk.
and hit. It is.
Yes, but you
It is
know your
interesting.
opponent's hand can't beat you right now. So I guess if you have, no, there's no way tendrils didn't kill you, right? Yeah,
There's no.
there's no way your opponent had tendrils in hand with 7 cards, led on 2 storm because Duress got probed, and didn't have like 2 more cards to kill you with tendrils, right?
Well,
So
the
if you're
card
gonna,
off the Git Probe is a volcanic island, so Ula does not have Force of
yeah,
Will now.
that's a big misstep of the mental variety. But you can't do that.
You therapy 2 rituals, but David has his storm count with recall on targeting himself for artifacts.
Yeah,
So these rituals actually aren't required.
yeah. Is that even what he names? Maybe he names Hercules Recall.
Maybe you name Hercules, then it's still 6 storm. Yeah,
No,
it's
it's
still
not.
lethal.
Well, you can't do anything about the storm, but maybe the Hercules has more practical applications later in the game. Um,
Wow. So Ula does not have a blue card for Force of Will, and I don't care what he names with Cabal Therapy, he cannot deprive David of the ability to top deck
how many cards are in Dave's
a
deck?
win.
My eyes aren't good enough for that.
34.
Oh, there's still a ton. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got 4 Dark Petitions, Demonic Tutor. He's got a lot of good cards too. Mind's Desire, Ancestral Recall.
It's like 20% good cards, at least.
At least, yeah. It depends
7
on whether you think
5.
Wheel of Fortune's a good card. I don't know if it's in his deck after sideboard.
Mox Emerald is not a good card.
No.
Wow, Ula's got 2 mana with Go with his Force of Will. Does not draw a blue card. Grafdigger's Cage doesn't do anything because David's already played his Yawgmoth's Will. Ula's hand is completely blank.
What is that? It's black.
I think it's a therapy. Therapy, right? Which
I don't even know if he cast that.
he doesn't know anything about Ula's hand.
Right. You can
Maybe
wait
you
until
save
you
it
draw
for the
something.
turn. Yeah. He's gonna cast it. Probably name Force of Will, right? And hit, but hilariously sort of miss.
Oh, it's definitely a hit. There's a lot of blue cards.
Yeah, sure.
Deck.
Yeah, I might have held that until I actually do the business spell, but
Yeah, I think I'd be inclined to do that. I mean, if you were going to name Force of Will, there's no reason to do it now because you might get 2 down the road, or which would essentially force them to force.
he does name Force.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any. So, like, the reason why that's bad to do is, I believe it was a mistake for Ole to cast the probe and get rid of the blue card. But by doing that, you're giving him the probe if that was his hand and he was playing it that way.
Ularade draws Demonic Tutor. He just goes and gets a creature and plays it, and David Williams is going to be down to his last draw step. How is this game still going some way? David Necro locked himself, used Chain of Vapor to bounce his own Necropotence. He's gotten like 4 or 5 draw steps since then.
Better check 3 times so you don't have a Lightning Bolt in there.
Yeah, I can't imagine there's a Lightning Bolt still in Uly's deck after sideboarding, so this is just young Pyromancer. You say check, ship the turn. David has one last top deck. Wow, what a game!
Well, Dave's looking to draw his own tutor.
Yeah, Tendril, tutor, exactly. David's got 5 in his deck. Ula draws the first one.
5 tutors, 2 storm spells are for sure good. Yeah, and then he's got Ancestral and.
I mean, you certainly go for any draw 7 you find for sure.
Yeah, there might not be any in his deck at this point. I'm not sure if Wheel of Fortune is in his deck, and I believe he cast the Twister, right?
All right, what's he gonna draw? It's a blue card.
It's a redraw.
Gataxian Probe.
Yep.
It's just a redraw. It's just the deck was a little thinner. He has to pay blue mana for it, but
yeah, he's mana flooded still. Does he have a removal spell? That'd be sweet if he just draws like a Dew Blade.
Kill the Pyromancer. All right.
He's gonna play all the other spells first.
Well, he's gonna tap Tolarian Academy for 1 billion blue. That's the blue that he's gonna spend.
All the same.
Top deck number 2. What is it? What's on top of the deck? Oh, it's Mana Crypt. It's more mana. Oh my God, David Williams is going to lose this game. He's going to get knocked out of the tournament. Ula Rade is going to come back next week to play for a spot in the Vintage Super League. He's going to play against David Ochoa first. And then we've also got Reed Duke and Nick Detweiler. But David Williams is not going to be coming back. This game was insane. I cannot believe all the crazy scenarios we wound up with. But when the dust settled, Ularati top decked first.
Yeah, that turn one Vampiric Tutor.
Yeah.
3.5 hours ago.
This was that game.
There's just aren't enough action spells in the deck. That is the glaring weakness, if there is one in the Storm deck, is that you got a lot of fast mana, you got a lot of good interaction in the discard spells, but you don't have that much action. And so, there are, 6 tutors in there. They're great. Yawgmoth's Will. There's the game winners and the Storm cards, and there's of course a couple draw 7s and a couple like Necropotence and Yawgmoth's Bargain. That being said, that's a dozen cards, and so you can't really spew when your opponent doesn't have anything going on, because you're at the mercy of the top of the deck. And he got really unlucky with the top of the deck, and the Time Twister went very poorly. Although, again, that turn, he had Dark Petition in his hand, and
he could have necroed up a hand. He didn't have to go for the
Yes.
Time Twister and cross his fingers. He could have necroed some more.
Yes.
That judgment call, I actually kind of liked his line. I probably would have done his line, but I can also see the case for just necroing some more, saving the Dark Ritual, and trying to see if you can get a better position next turn.
Well, he had Ritual and Dark Petition, so that's a lot of action to be able to fill up your hand and potentially just cast a Tendrils next turn. You had the tutor to go get it, so I don't know. It's tough.
Tough game.
It's a crazy game.
That is going to bring a wrap to this week of Vintage Super League. We can put the bracket up and kind of show everybody exactly where things are at. We started with a match between David Ochoa and Gerard Fabiano, where Gerard was the loser. He is out of the event. David Ochoa then went on to also knock Roland Chang to the sidelines. He perseveres, comes back next week. We watched David Williams defeat Sam Black, earning this match against Ularade, but Ularade split his 2 matches against Storm. He lost the winner's bracket match to Reed Duke, who's in good shape at 2-0, still got a loss to give, and has a pairing with Nick Detweiler queued up, but Ula did then beat the other Storm player, David Williams. So we get Grixis Therapy versus Workshops on the bottom half of the bracket. We get Storm versus Workshops on the top half of the bracket, and one way or another, one of those 4 remaining players is going to get an invite into the Vintage Super League by the end of next week's show. That was a lot of great Magic. Wow. I do also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Puka Trade. I know that I've talked a lot about my own experiences with this site. I got to show off another one. I get this nice Marshflats now. I'm up to 7 expeditions that have gone into my Canadian Highlander decks thanks to Puka Trade. And I just found out today, actually, I have an 8th one on the way. So now every fetch land capable of getting a Tundra out of my Canadian Highlander deck will be an expedition by the time I get to the World Magic Cup next week.
Do you have more humble brags?
I don't know how humble that was.
I'm just kidding. They're not humble.
Yeah, they're not humble. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah,
no, I take my trip to Spain as a Hall of Famer.
Oh, I didn't even think of the trip to Spain. You're right. Yeah, Barcelona's going to be awesome. It's kind of cold right now over here. I'm going to hang out in Barcelona for a little. Yeah, I actually I would have flown out on Tuesday for the World Magic Cup. It is coming up next weekend, by the way. It should be an awesome event.
You got this. You got a gig.
I know. Tuesday night, I can't leave on Tuesday. I got to do the Vintage Super League. We got to get a new 10th player. I'm sure we will not. Martel will already be there. We will not have Martel on commentary next week. I will be here for next week's though. And then first thing Wednesday morning, I take off for Spain for the World Magic Cup. So you got any thoughts on the World Magic Cup while we got you and we're talking about it? If you can't pick Team USA, I'll give you that. I don't want you to burn any bridges amongst friends or countrymen. I mean, who's the best non-Team USA?
It hurts so much already that I had that huge parlay to not be the captain.
That's true. It
player
is
of the year. It was tough.
It is quite surprising that you're not going to be there.
There are some pretty fantastic teams. Japan, of course, every year is a perennial powerhouse. Canada has the best 1-2 punch of any country. I think what's that?
Without question. Like they have 2 Pro Tour winners. They have 2 current Platinum Pros. That's the best 1-2.
Brazil's going to be very good, and there's a number of European countries that have outstanding teams with two or three players and that seems to happen pretty consistently in a lot of the quote unquote smaller European countries that don't get huge attendances for the WMCQs, that they tend to have their great players and their platinum gold players represent their teams very often. Not too surprising when you have the best players in the world playing in what is essentially a smaller PTQ for players who aren't out in those countries to see what it's like. But they consistently have several teams that are outstanding, with the captain being someone who picked up
even
platinum level points and two other players who are great.
Even the defending champs had Martin Mueller, last year's captain, win a WMCQ to join Martin Dang. So it's a pretty good 1-2 punch. Not quite Hayne McLaren, but it's very good.
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones. And then just the fact that so many teams have amazing captains, which can just carry a team in a team format where you can communicate, there's coaching. And so just having a Paulo Vitor Damarosa, having a Jelger Wiegersma, just having these Hall of Fame platinum players. Yeah. They're just outstanding. Who've been playing the game forever. Jelger's won a Team Pro Tour. Paulo's got second in a Team Pro Tour. Like these guys they understand what they're doing, and they're the best players in the world. So all those teams are going to be ones to look out for. It's going to be a pretty great.
Was there a pick in there? Or you're just going to avoid actually making a
I'd probably go with Japan.
That's my pick.
I can't pick the U.S. I would probably go with Japan.
It's hard. It's hard to make the case for somebody else, honestly. I mean, I think it's going to be close. There's a bunch of really good teams, but if you had to pick one, you're like Kenji Samura, slightly out of form Kenji Samura might be their third best player. He's got a Hall of Famer who's arguably their third best. That's kind of crazy.
Kenji's worked with Channel Fireball before, and he's amazing. And I played him in his prime, and obviously was easily one of the best players to ever play. But yeah, that team's fantastic. And I do think you get a bit of an advantage being able to speak loudly and no one understand you as far as communication is concerned. So that's an advantage I've seen in team tournaments myself. So I think that's going to be a tough team to beat, and of course Team USA is ridiculously good.
I totally agree. You got a pick to win this thing next Tuesday? Who do you think's going to join us in VSL?
I think that Reed has the best deck. He said he had a good Shops matchup. I played with Shops only one time in the Vintage tournament. It seemed like it was going to be challenging, but I did manage to win 2-0 in relatively convincing fashion, although some of the lines were very challenging. Shops is definitely a lot weaker against Storm without 4 copies of Chalice. So if Reed has a good workshop matchup like he thinks he does, and he very well might.
That's a great point, by the way. We had him on commentary last week. He said, I want the Shops matchup. Not only do I think I have a good Shops matchup, I want to prove to everyone out there that Storm is good against Shops, especially the way he's got his Storm deck. He was asking for the Shops matchup, and now he's got it. He's got Nick Detweiler standing in front of him. The winner of that is just one match win away from a spot in the league.
Yeah, and I think that Shops is still a great deck, and I've watched Nick and David play many matches now in this league, and I thought they played great. So if Shops is as strong as it seems, and the Storm matchup is actually good for Shops, then we have a couple of great pilots there. So there's a lot of good options.
Yeah, I thought David Ochoa played spectacular Magic today, earlier, both against Gerard and especially against Roland.
I really liked how Nick played last week. So
that's a good point.
Yeah, should be good.
All right, I think that's going to do it for Vintage Super League. Come back next week. We will crown a winner. That also means 2 weeks from tonight, you and I get back in the fray. We kick off the regular season in 2 weeks, so that should certainly be a lot of fun. But
I feel like we already did on Sunday. It's just all of us in the top 4.
Yeah, three of the top 4. We let one guy in. That was all right. That was fun though. That was certainly fun. Somehow I lost. I still can't believe Rich Shea in the top 4 knocked me out of that tournament by summoning and then attacking 4 times with Dragon Lord Dromoka.
He did not do that against me.
No, how do I lose? I was playing Doomsday. I mean, I almost had him where I could just baby tendrils him out, and Dragon Lord Dromoka's life gain took my outs away. It was just absurd. Rich swears by his Sylvan libraries too. I don't even think he likes Dromoka. It just happens that the way that game played out, I was just attacked by this 6-mana dragon 4 times. It's crazy. But the Sylvans are actually sort of interesting tech. Anyway,
that's good.
Three out of 4 in the Power 9 Challenge. All 10 of us will be back. Well, 9 of us plus 1 TBD. So hopefully you guys will tune in. We'll see you next Tuesday. And then, yeah, World Magic Cup. Certainly what a lot of people are looking forward to the weekend after. So for Eric, for Athena, for everybody else who's been bringing you Vintage Super League, we'll see you next time.